So, hello and welcome to our first episode of Candour Conversations, where we have open and honest conversations about the health and care community at large. Today, I'm joined by Lisa Di-Fonzo, who is our Quality Improvement Coordinator for Care. Thank you ever so much for taking the time to join us today, Lisa. If you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, hello, Lee. It's nice to be talking to you this afternoon. So thank you very much for invitation. Yeah, quality improvements coordinator for care. I think you know, from my point of view, um, I've got the best title ever. I think because it's looking back about all of those wonderful things and those journeys and experiences and learning and obviously having opportunities that bring me to where I am today. I've been in the care sector for many years. Um, I think it started really when I left school. And I always look back on how, you with your grandparents and your parents and how, you really had that ability to be able to, look after your grandparents and so it stemmed from a childhood really, it stemmed from a childhood. Um, it grew from there and obviously wanting to work in the care sector. So I started there. I've worked in hospital settings as well. So I had the great opportunity to work for the NHS for a number of years really, and just work on the ground with with patients and support the nurses and look at how I can train and how I can develop and how I can build my skills. So it's a great opportunity to be able to support from us as a training provision and building those initial things within the curriculum. That's well needed for us to be able to deliver that out there, and knowing that we've got some fantastic learners out there to be able to deliver great quality care. And I always said it's much more than quality, isn't it? It's much more than that.
And that leads us on really, really nicely to the leadership quality framework. So good leadership in itself is very, very important to high quality care provision. However, some people sort of struggle to understand what leadership means, either for themselves or for their organizations. So the leadership quality framework itself focuses on the values and behaviours that provide the foundations really for effective leadership in social care. So today we're going to be talking about the leadership quality framework. Specifically, it's 7 dimensions. If we can start by asking really, what would you say is the key sort of the fundamental key element to the leadership quality framework?
Well, when we look at it, and you were saying about your values and your principles, and all those wonderful things that we have automatically and also inspire to be. I think fundamentally it's about understanding about what's needed, and that comes with teaching, learning, and building that from the bottom upwards, and having a good understanding, a good background of your subject matter. So we're all leaders, we all lead in one way or another, and it's about actually understanding that. And the way that they do that is reflection, the impact, could have done better, what do I need to know, what do I need to learn, and have I done the right thing? But always having that open approach and asking those questions, and always having that ability to be able to learn from that, because we're all learning, and that's a good thing about having a Candour approach. I think from a training perspective, for us, it's about understanding what's needed, you know, and for us to be able to capture that, and that's good because we collaborate. And there was one thing that and I'm probably just chatting away here, but some of the things that I think about every day regularly is, listening to conversations, and it's really interesting. And we talked about like failings in care, and what does that look like? How did it happen? And stripping it down and looking at it in its bare entirety, really. Um, it's interesting how when you really understand and you think about it and you say, yeah, it's leadership and training. Well, what is it about leadership and training? What is it? Is it the fact that there wasn't the right people in the right jobs? They were upskilled too quick, or they didn't have the right information, or their champions, their peers weren't trained professionally to be able to give that good information, advice, and guidance.
So the framework itself can be used by individuals to review, reflect on their own performances as a leader in their role, on the role. But it can also be used then to support things like the recruitment, the selection process for leadership and management roles. There, like you were saying, they can be put forward for a role that perhaps they're not ready for at that time.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
something like the framework can then support that selection process to make sure that the design and staff development and leadership learning programs are well informed for both the individual, the team, the organization, and the overall performance of the company itself.
It's about, it's stepping stones, isn't it? It's looking at things and doing smart, it's those smart targets which are the best thing to do. But also, I think also what we've learned as well, especially with a framework like this, is the fact that actually, do they want to do it? Is it right for them? Have we asked the question? We sometimes we expect,
Very important.
and we go, right, okay, well, you've done that, let's put you on that. And it's like, well, actually, do they actually want to do it? Because you've got to want to do it for it to succeed in anything. And I think, given opportunities, we've got great people out there, they're like sponges and they want to learn. But yeah, it's about asking those questions as well, isn't it? And I think the ability to be able to do that is, and as you said, Lee, it's about, the staff retention, because having the right people in the right roles and, upskilling them at the right times and giving them the opportunities to be able to do that, then, it's great for staff retention. And because it's about celebrating success. And what that success looks like, it could be something very small, that is something amazing for that individual, and it's about celebrating that as well. So it's a good way of looking at that for that individual. Yeah.
So breaking it down into its sort of core dimensions, we've got what's classed as dimension 1, which looks at things like developing self-awareness, managing yourself, continuing professional development, and acting with integrity. How would you say that applies directly to a leadership role within the health and social care industry?
Oh God, absolutely. I mean, all of those objectives, are fundamental to what's needed in adult care and in our care services and settings. I think integrity is one of the biggest great attributes that anybody can have, especially with a humble approach as well, because it enables that person to look and to have that ability to be able to act upon things that are really needed, and it could be small, it could be large, but it's about having those good attributes, and they are very, very fundamental to what's needed to have outstanding care and outstanding quality within the care provision. But it's about understanding, well, what does that look like, and what does that feel like, and how can what do I need to do to be able to prove these qualities and it's breaking that down. It's having great mentors, great leaders, great people that can support those individuals to be able to excel, and go, actually, that's great. I remember once when I was looking at coaching and mentoring and leadership, and it's quite a hard ability to be able to, yourself, because I think working in the care industry, you just want to wrap everybody in cotton wool and go, and say, yes, I can do this. It's my bag, and and because you care, but you have to, in any leadership, be able to delegate and to be able to let go. And that sometimes is quite difficult. So you have to learn those things, those attributes, those qualities to be able to do that. And that's where obviously we step in, really, because we've got great programs, great systems to be able to do that. And actually, give some really good examples. Yeah, and having that, as you said, the first steps is that self-awareness. You can learn the self-awareness and that ability to be able to, okay, look at oneself, and how you reflect on others. Then you're that stepping stone away, definitely.
Absolutely, it's and it also avoids those things like those accidental manager roles as well, because it's very easy to talk the talk, but this forces people to walk the walk as well. There's that old saying that leaders are born, not made, and I fundamentally disagree with that in its entirety, because I've seen some of the strongest leaders being taught skills through Paragon skills. I've watched all sorts of case studies where people have developed from quite meek, quite laid back people to these fierce, go-getting leaders who make huge decisions on a day-to-day basis without a second thought. Like you said there, with with working with others is a core part of delegation and things like that. So that moves very nicely onto dimension two. So we're looking at the key areas of sort of developing networks, building and maintaining relationships, encouraging contribution, and again, acting with integrity, which is key to every aspect of this.
It's key throughout, isn't it? I think what we're talking about is actually one of the fundamental things is collaborating with others, working in partnership, being a team player. And it's one of these things where it's having that open door policy. So within our care industry, collaborating with all opportunities out there to have those that fundamental information that's needed for our vulnerable people out there. But it's also actually about measuring that and not getting run away with it, because I think sometimes communication channels can be broken, and when we look at things, it's about putting things in perspective and collating evidence, collating data, collating statistics, putting that down. What does it look like? What does it feel like? And how we can put that into something that's quite tangible, and then we and we review that.
So yeah, so from what you're saying there, it's a huge focus on the qualities needed to work well with colleagues, sort of both within and outside the organisation itself. It's about developing that network, building and maintaining that relationship, and like you said, encouraging the contributions and giving thanks and working within those teams as well. So it's all about almost like you've planted the seed, you've let it grow a little bit, and it's looking fantastic. But you've got to keep watering it and feeding it to make sure that it's going to develop.
You've got to nurture the roots.
Definitely, and like you said earlier on, it can lead to tough decisions that need to be made as well. So things like Dimension 3 looks at things like planning, managing resources, managing people, and managing performance. These are not easy tasks to put down and to actually get into.
Yeah, managing people. It's a great one, isn't it? It's a great one because we're all different. As I said, we're all unique, we're all individual, and but I think one of the fundamental things is about having a great culture, having an open culture, and you know, having a culture that's positive, proactive, um, honest, open. Um, having a culture that has a real passion to want to succeed, to want to make a difference, and yeah, looking at how people's can change with that culture, because having a culture that's very much, open, honest, transparent, having a culture that's obviously proactive and all of those wonderful things and fundamental to what we do is probably key. And changing somebody naturally to because we're all, you know, we're all creatures of habit. When we
Yes.
get older, we get set in our ways. And one of the biggest tasks for leaders is actually people. Because I'm working in our care industry, we deal with a lot of people. Um, but but I think it comes with right from the beginning about good recruitment, good selection, and recruiting the right people and getting the right people involved in that, and what that looks like and what that feels like and having that ability. But when we look at right at the top and we look at about managing people, actually it stems from the bottom as well. So if it's about, as we said, it's about saying thank you. It's about being kind. It's about, just putting the kettle on or, or whatever it is that you need to do to have that stop and go. But it's about being observant. And I always say this, it's about, because we always say, like, people, there's a reason why people act the way they do. There's a valid reason why people do the things they do. And it's based sometimes on how we're feeling, how we're thinking at the time. And it's all these wonderful things, which is, if you think about it, it's not rocket science, really. It's about being human. But I think sometimes we lose touch in that, don't we? We lose those things, and because we're in the moment, and we've got lots of things to do, and But I think the reason why is that if you can, great leaders are great delegators. I always remember a story saying a great leader is somebody that doesn't have their door knocked or that phone ring every 5 minutes. That's a great leader because they've already done it. Because it's those that they've channeled it, haven't they? They've delegated.
And
Um,
it's inspiring that confidence, like it's engendering that trust
yeah,
for each individual.
yeah,
So
sure.
it almost puts it into a position where every colleague, every carer is aware of the organisation's direction and strategy.
Yes.
And if that leader is role modeling good behaviours, then they're going to believe them, they're going to trust
Mhm.
them, and
Yeah, absolutely.
they're going to have the confidence to make their own decisions themselves. So like you say, that leader's not going to get their door knocked every 5 minutes because
No,
they've given their
no,
colleagues the opportunity to go off and make those decisions.
absolutely. It's asking the question and giving the feedback. And, I always say it's very interesting. And if I don't know the answer, I always used to say, come back, go to sleep on it, and you'll know in the morning. I've never been wrong. Because you do,
Absolutely.
because you say, well, what do you think you should do? How do you think you should deal with that? And giving them that ability, because we're all grown ups, we pay our bills on time and we go to work on time, and but sometimes we always ask that question, don't we? Oh, I'm not responsible for that. I need to get reassurance. And actually, no, you can do it. And it's getting, and it's you know, if you give them the confidence to be able to do that and the recognition for what they're doing, and, you know, but also dealing with those situations, dealing with those instances, but there and then, picking it up, tapping into it, putting it to bed, you know, and that's it, because things can fester, they can manifest, they can, you know, it's very, very easy for that to happen. So yeah, and that produces a great culture and a great society in what we do, and it it's great because obviously if we've got a vision, we've got the values, we've got the vision, and we've got the mission, um, and we all believe in it, and you know we can, yeah, that's, yeah, I can understand that. That's great. You know, we that's how we get good, great leaders and inspires, because it's about having that real good ability to be able to believe in what you're doing. So it's bringing all of that in, bringing it all in into our training provision, into our curriculum, into our, you know, our services, to be able to say this is what's needed, this is how we can support, um, for those leaders to be able to deliver great services, isn't it? And having that ability. So it's tapping in. It's looking at not only our standards, our occupational standards. It's, well, what do we need to be able to do to be able to get those great leaders to lead from the front, to have that culture, to have that passion, to have that vision, to have all those great qualities, you know. And it is like leading from examples, isn't it? Lead, you know, and you can only look, as you said, Lee, is, you know, you lead from the people that are sort of, you inspire to be like those. You look up, don't you, to those, and we mirror image a lot of the time, because we work closely in a very small proximity of people, and we see people every day. So if you've got passionate, inspiring, caring, loving individual people that really want to make a difference, then you're actually contributing to, you know, mirror imaging that and forecasting that out to um to all of those potential great leaders that you want them to be, because that's the whole point, isn't it? You want to upskill, um, you know, your staff. You want to upskill those to be able to sit in your shoes, don't you? To be able to do that. Definitely. Yeah.
Absolutely, and that moves us very nicely onto dimension four, which is
I
all
like
about.
this. It's great, isn't it? It goes on quite nicely.
There's not a tenuous segue in the house on this one. This is perfectly aligning. We like it.
Fully aligned.
So dimension four itself looks at improving services. So we've looked at managing yourself. We've looked at managing those around you, and we've also looked at how you work with those people. So with the improving services, we're looking at things like ensuring the safety of the people that we support. We're looking at critically evaluating our own work and the work around us. We're looking at encouraging improvement and innovation. And we're finally, after all of that, we're looking at facilitating that transformation itself. So how does someone continue to support and inspire those responsible for the successful delivery of strategic and operational plans?
Lessons learned. I always go back to that. I always go back about reevaluating and looking at how improvements can be made, but also collaborating. Because I think sometimes when you work in operational services out there, and looking at care services and settings and how that can be managed, then actually it's about collaborating with additional operation services out there that have worked together, which is, that's what happens. That's what happens. It's about having those innovative, creative ideas, and putting those strategic plans in place. And it is about working with others. And but you've got to remember as well is, when you're looking at that plan, you've got to make sure that, and always that back to the regulatory requirements of key lines of inquiries and looking at those because they're fundamental to what we do every day. So when you work with, it's fundamental that you have, that we tap in and we work closely with our CUC regulations and, you get information, advice, and guidance from them of what's needed and yeah, I mean, when you get to outstanding, it's funny. I was on I think it was a few weeks ago now, and it was what does outstanding look like and what's needed, and it was very interesting about about when we talk about strategic planning and how and innovation and the concept of all of that and what does that look like, and actually it's very basic about what's needed to get to outstanding, and it's your fundamentals. So and I always say it's lessons learned. So it's looking at, well, how do we improve? Well, we put things into place, we measure it. If it's working, that's fantastic. How do we measure that? What does that look like? So you can't do that by just standalone isolated incidences. You just have to look at things entirety and picking up on key aspects and ensuring that that we do make mistakes. It's learning from those mistakes, and it's making improvements of what those mistakes look like. They could be small, they could be big, but it's how we get there, and we get there by working closely with each other. And um, when we have ideas, it's, well, where do these ideas come from? What's the theory behind it? Has it already been proven? Can this work in our sector? Are we biting off more than we can chew sometimes? I think, it's about realistic goals. And it's different for everybody because every service and setting out there is completely different. They've got different needs, different abilities, different concepts, and how they grow. I mean, we've got some major corporate care companies out there that have, looking at celebrating success and what does that look like, and agenda for changes, and and looking at strategic planning and what's needed, and putting those plans in place, and what does that look like in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years time. So it's actually working ahead of schedule and looking at those bigger plans. It's working together in harmony, it's working together and having an open, as a Candour approach. It's having the right communication channels, but having the right people in the right job roles, which is very, you think, well, actually, that's is what's needed. Because I think sometimes when we look at the care industry, it's great to be a leader, but when you look at background and expertise and knowledge, it's like, well, sometimes industry, we don't always have that expertise and knowledge. So we have to make sure that our workforce has got those pockets of expertise and knowledge at the right, places at the right time. So, and if you haven't got it, it's like a house. If you've got bricks missing, all of a sudden, your walls are going to start falling down. So you need to make sure that it's solid. And by doing that, you're putting those fundamental, measures in place by having a really good quality upskilled workforce, and having with that upskill is having those those right people in that can then do their jobs. And it's having the right people in the right job roles. Definitely, if you have an open door policy, if you have a good culture, passionate culture that cares, and wants to be in the industry that they work in, they can have amazing leaders. Because you know it's it's no good having somebody in a job that go, well, I'm just doing it because of my paycheck. It doesn't work like that, not in this industry.
No, no,
Um,
no. The care industry is one of those industries that people do it because they care. The clue's
care.
in the name, isn't it? And it's
It
it's like
is.
you say that the core of it is the culture, which you get a good culture by having a transparency, a really high level of transparency, by having that open door policy. Encouraging whistleblowing, having recognised systems and processes in
Absolutely.
place to deal with anything effectively. But from what you were saying there, it's also about creating that ethos that values people at every level of the
Oh,
organisation. You've mentioned ground up a few times here, and then modelling that wrong model behaviour and empowering those staff, so you can they can lead. Um,
absolutely.
so we've talked about the making the difference. We've talked about the managing the people. We've talked about huge elements of the framework itself. Moving on to dimension 5, which is all about setting directions. This is a little bit more complex. This is a little bit more theory based. So it's identifying things like the context of change. It's applying that knowledge and evidence. It's making those decisions and then evaluating the impacts that you've had.
Yeah, it is. Again, isn't it? It's having the right information, the right resources out there, and it's looking at those great theorists and having the ability to be able to really do that really good in-depth, deep dive research, putting it into practice, and actually, does it work for us? Because, as I said, every service and setting's different. Everybody has an approach to doing something. They'll bring something new out, and I'll go, right, okay, we've done the research on this. We've piloted it. This is a great opportunity for us to be able to deliver this now, and we'll reconvene in maybe 6 to 12 months time to have a look to see whether it's actually benefited, um, which is great. But as I said, you've got to put those measures in place. So, you know, because things do change. You've got different models, different approaches, different ways of working. Um, that may have worked, and it's interesting how um, you look at. And I always come back to lessons learned because you go, okay, so we've put these models in place, we've adopted these principles, we've done this theory based, we've looked at different types of approaches and that, and we've collated this data, we've implemented it, we've piloted it, and they've came up with obviously with an outcome. But the best ways of working is for those that don't go deep diving in with the head first. It's about actually, okay, so let's look at it. Let's really research this. Let's really put this in and into practice, into a small, maybe adopt and trailblazer or pilot, and look at how that can be have what we can measure from that and what we can learn from that. Because, as I said, one size doesn't fit all, and we've got to remind ourselves and remember that our services and settings out there, all of our leaders, whether it be from an operations, care corporate companies to little individual client base needs on a one-to-one basis. There's different, models of adopting great things, and it could be could be measured. You have to measure it. It can be measured in so many different ways, and then if it works, that happens, then I said, why do you need to invent the wheel when actually this is amazing? It's working. You may not need to. It may be the fact that you may need to just listen and go, oh, actually, and having the confidence to be able to say that, because I think that's a big thing, isn't it?
So we've got those 5 core dimensions there out of the 7. So the framework itself is based on the structure of the leadership framework, which was developed by the NHS, and that includes the 5 qualities that we recognise that apply to all leadership roles within the care and healthcare settings. And then we've got the 2 dimensions that apply to senior staff only, and those are creating the vision and delivering the strategy itself.
Senior can mean different things to different services and settings, but and within the NHS as well, because they've got so many different provisions that we can look at. And so it's depending on what you define as seniors, depending on what their job spec is. So it's anybody that's got the ability to oversee and you know, to support as well, and to make sure that you know, the running of a service is done in a way where they can absorb some of that information, where they get passed on to. They can deal with certain situations which are inside their circle of influence. But then if it's outside their circle of influence, knowing who to go to and having that ability to be able to pass that on to that relevant information onto that relevant person at that precise moment in time, and you know, knowing that that's going to be dealt with, and having that ability really. So it's depending on that senior role and senior level. So I always say that you know, with any role, any responsibility, having the leadership is having a great workforce, that they know that they've got those roles and responsibilities, and they work with that inside their circle of ability, capability, and influence, which is the big thing, because you have to go by your ability to be able to have that insight as well, which comes from experience and wisdom and all of that. So having a great workforce, yeah, there's different roles, different responsibilities, but you know, you should be able to, at that higher level, be able to oversee and look at that, and knowing full well that actually, you know, having a strong workforce and you know, a quality workforce, an outstanding workforce, is having all of those um you know, sort of like objectives in situ. So it's and I was saying about the wall, isn't it? If you've got pockets which are weak, if you've got pockets which, you know, need structure, then it's looking at what's needed, isn't it? It's looking at, and sometimes it can be something that they need to reevaluate. So we look at our standards and how they've changed, and how the care services and sectors have changed, because what they've done is they've looked at on the ground what's needed. Like, they've listened. You know, you look at complaints, suggestions. You pick up on that. You look at lessons learned, and you pick up on that, and you look at, you know, what does a strong workforce look like? You look at the skills and the abilities to be able to do that. So you look at all of those things, and you know, making sure that having those levels, you've got the right people in the right, you know, the right roles, but having, you know, having them having ability to be able to upskill themselves, because when we're on the ground and we're working our way up, we do a lot of CPD, we do a lot of training, we do a lot of, of qualifications to be able to get to a level. And then when we look at those higher levels, it's like, well, what do we need? And we, you know, we talked and we looked at the ability to be able to collaborate, and to be able to research and theory based and critically analyze, and, you know, evaluate, and having those approaches, and looking at what's in, you know, what's in situ at the moment, and working with those, and government reforms and government inquiries and government reports, and looking at all of those, and tapping in on that, and and lessons learned as well. So it is working from the ground up and obviously from the top down, and having that ability to be able to, not, if you need to know something, that's why we've got a great culture in Paragon, because everybody's door's open. There's no chain, is there? If you've got somebody that wants something, you should be able to pick that phone up or be able to say, I need help. Can anybody help? And it's amazing to say, do you know what? Yeah, of course. Or if I don't know, yeah, I'm sure so and so knows. So it's having that, and what a lovely thing that is, just having that open culture of being able to do
Definitely.
that, because it's like that. What you do is you look at that individual person and you think to yourself, be in their shoes. And it's putting them in their shoes, isn't it? So you need to be able to think that. You need to be able to think about, well, what are they going through? How can I support from that, from from being at that level? And you should be able to do that at any level. It doesn't matter what level you're at. You should be able to, do that. And I think that's the great ability to be able to go, yeah, my door's always open, and that open door policy. So I suppose really, it flows, and it should flow up and it should flow back down again as well, because they should be able to pick that phone up, to contact, to communicate that channel, to be able to do that.
Oh,
It's
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 so
about being
so
human.
handy. Yeah, so handy having experts at literally my fingertips any time of the day. And there's hundreds of them. You're quite right. There's hundreds of them out there, and they've all got such a broad knowledge base.
You have to tap into everybody and say, okay, you know, and having that pot to be able to say, let's put it in there. So yeah, otherwise, you can't learn otherwise, and it's great, isn't it? And to be able to have those
I certainly
tools and
enjoy it.
abilities. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes my life a lot easier on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, for sure. Thank you ever so much for joining me today. It's been really eye-opening for myself, and I'm sure that those listening will have certainly learnt a few things today.
Yeah.
As one final question, if you were a care home, if you were a potential learner thinking about joining a level 5 apprenticeship, what would you say to them?
Oh, absolutely. Do it. You know. It's the best. Do you know what? It's the best job in the world, because you're not just, this is it. It's like, you're not just that carer. You're that individual person that's going to make those lives worthwhile. You're going to make such a difference to those people that you absolutely care for. And you're going to make such a difference in the world of, care in that industry. And one of the wonderful things about being in this industry is that you might start off not wanting, you might start off in a different, we've got cleaners, cooks, all sorts. Or you might want to, go and be a nurse, but or wherever you want to be, social workers, wherever you want to be in the care industry, you know, the pathways that you start off with might change, which is great, and that's okay. And you can do that. You can start off in one direction and end up in a completely different, but still in the same industry. So it opens so many doors for you, and it's a great opportunity for you to be able to give, and I think you get so much out of that when you do give, and to make a difference into those lives that really really need it, because we're getting older, and we need people to, just to support, every
Yeah,
aspect of that,
absolutely. I want
to
high, I want high quality care in a few years' time. Thank you very
oh,
much.
we do. I want it now. I feel like I'm old before we die. I said I want it now. But yeah, it's just giving that ability, and I think, I've met so many great leaders, in my job, and they're all at different levels, you know, and I can say that I can walk into somewhere and go, do you know what? They're a great leader, and they don't even know it, you know. And I just said the way that they, you know, deliver, and which they haven't obviously a natural ability to be able to do. So yeah, and there's always something out there for somebody. Always. I would say that. I would say it's a whole delivery approach where there's actually a job for everybody. And it's, you know, in that industry. And it's okay to change, you know. One of the things that you can do is, rather than, obviously you can sidetrack, there's so many different avenues. Yeah, it's just great how there's so many people out there that you talk to and go, well, where did it all start? And you know, there's some amazing stories to tell.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for today. Have a wonderful afternoon.
And you, yeah, you take care, and we'll catch up soon.